Welcome to this live session. We are going to start in just a second. Today we are going to talk about Firebase authentication, and let's just wait a few more minutes. Let me know if you can hear me right or if there are any issues. And I think we are going to start. So welcome to this live episode of Firebase Authentication. We are going to log in, log out. We are going to save our profile to Firestore. And if you do have any further questions, go ahead and check out rebeloper.com/mentoring, where you can meet me on a 60-minute Zoom call. And if you have any questions about SwiftUI or Firebase, for that matter, go ahead and check that out. So today we are going to talk about authentication. Therefore, we want to create a brand new Xcode project. So there we go. And let's create a new project right over here. It will be an iOS application. Let's click on next. And we are going to select SwiftUI. Yes, we are going to do this all in SwiftUI. So let's just go Firebase Auth. SwiftUI, and let's click on next right over here. Let's drop it onto our desktop. Let's create that. This is our basic template. Usually I remove the canvas. When I'm doing these tutorials, it's really fast paced, so I don't try to mess around with the preview provider. Okay, so now that we have our bundle identifier right over here, let's just go to signing in capabilities. Let's just copy that out. Now we want to create an actual Firebase app inside the Firebase dashboard. So we just go to firebase.google.com. And of course you want to log in. You just go select go to console, and let's create a new project right over here. And I have already selected my bundle identifier. Therefore, I will just paste that in there. Of course, it will not allow that, so I'm just going to remove, the junk of it. Let's continue here. I'm not going to enable Google Analytics for this demo project, but basically you should. It's for free, so you just need to link your Google Analytics profile. So now we are just creating our Firebase Auth Firebase project. Okay, so we are going to do this with SwiftUI, and we are going to use Firebase Authentication, Firebase Firestore. So let's hit continue right over here. And now we are able to set up our project. So let's just select iOS plus right over here. And now we are able to actually paste our bundle identifier right over here. And, app nickname, app store ID, we can set that up later on. So we just go register the app. So we can download the config file. Let's just see. Download the Google Service Info plist file. Let me just drag that into our project right over here. Make sure that you drag and drop it onto the root folder of your project. So let's click finish right over here. As you can see, I have a lot of Google Service Info plist files because it has been numbered 54. So I just need to remove that. Okay, so let's come back over here. Let's click on next. Now we want to add the Firebase iOS SDK. So what I prefer is the Swift Package Manager. So let's copy that out and let's paste that into our Xcode project. Select your project, project again, package dependencies, click on plus right over there, and then paste that copied out URL up to next major version 10 is the current one. So if you are watching this in the distant future, make sure, and if you are going to have some issues, make sure that you use 10 point up to next major 10.0.0. Let's add that package. And basically this will take a while because there are quite a lot of packages to be fetched. But till then, we are going to move forward over here. Let's click on next. And let's just wait to add our initialization code because, we need to create this app delegate. I just want to simply copy it out. So let me just jump back to Xcode, and what we want to select here is a Firebase Auth. not the Firebase database. I prefer the Firestore database, so Firebase Firestore and Firebase Firestore Swift. We are going to have a nice a codable function there that we are going to use. So that's it. Let's just scroll a little bit down. Let's see if we need anything else. No. So we just want to add those packages. There we go. We have that. So now let me just copy, well, actually, let me just copy this out so we can import Firebase core right over there. And then I'm going to select these and paste it into the app file. And next up, what we want to do is just register the app delegate for the Firebase setup. Let me just copy that out and paste it right over here. So basically, that's our setup. Let's just hit continue right over here. So clicking on next and continue to console should be okay. Now we need to set up some things. We are now linked to our Xcode project, but we are going to need to set up a few things inside the Firebase dashboard. Therefore, you want to unwrap this build and select authentication. And let's just get started. And we are going to sign in with email and password. That's the easiest one. Of course, you can have a bunch of other providers. And yeah, go ahead and check out rebeloper.com/mentoring if you want me to go through any of these. So let's select email and let's enable it and click on save. That's just it. Now we have authentication for email and password set up. Next up, after we sign up for our application with the authentication part of Firebase, we also want to link that URID that we are given to our Firestore project. So Firebase database. Therefore, we also want to set up a Firestore database so we can maybe store our user's name, or I usually call users under the authentication and profiles in the Cloud Firestore. So we want to store actually our profile for our user in Cloud Firestore. We are going to start in test mode, and this will create a specific rule, allow read and write if the request, the timestamp is less than 1 month from today. So currently that's perfectly fine. Maybe you want to change that to the user being authenticated. It's up to you. So this is a really important step. You want to select your location for the servers where your Cloud Firestore authentication, all of the other services for this project will be physically held. So yeah, I'm just going to go with the default location. Make sure that you select what's appropriate and what's best for you. So let's enable that. And it's really important because after you enable this, it cannot be changed. So you need to be aware of that. So here we go. We have that set up. And we are done with the Firebase dashboard setup. It's time to do some coding. So let's go back to Xcode, and yeah, we have this setup. Let me just hit Command B while I'm just going to do some stuff, because we want to build quite a lot of files, as you can see right over here, and it will take a few minutes. Well, it depends on, of course, on the power of your Mac. And build has succeeded. Really nice. Okay, so yeah, Murphy's Law. When I say it's going to take a lot, it just snaps right into place. So great, build has succeeded, which is really, really important. Now we have Firebase linked up. Now it's time to code. So what are we going to do? Well, we are going to sign up via email and password, as I told you, and we are going to save our profile. So inside the profile, what should we save? Well, first of all, you should never save your email and password inside your database. That's tucked away nicely and securely inside Firebase Authentication. What we should actually save is, for example, our name. So let me just create a new file right over here, new file, and that will be a Swift file. Next, and name this profile. Okay, that will be our profile. And let's import SwiftUI, or rather, yeah, currently we don't need SwiftUI, but most probably you will down the line. Maybe you want to make this identifiable or whatever. Usually I just go and import SwiftUI. In our case, it will not be necessary, just so you know, but you know, moving forward to future-proof this struct. So it will be a struct indeed. So a struct called profile. There we go. And because I do know that we are going to encode and decode into and out of this struct, I'm going to set this automatically, just codable. So codable, it is encodable and decodable. Okay, what are we going to have here? We are going to have a name of type string. And because this is a struct, we could just leave it as is. It will just ask us when we are going to initialize this, the name. But as you will shortly find out, we are going to use this profile inside a published variable where a default value is kind of required. And therefore, I'm going to create our custom initializer where all of our properties, in this case, just the name, but you surely going to have a lot more, they are going to be used with the default values. So what I mean, the default values, and Xcode is really, really helpful right over here. We have that name. We are going to set this name as an optional string and set it to actually nil. Now, why is that important? Well, if we are not going to provide the name, that means that the optional name will be nil. Therefore, we want to give it the name, or when it's nil, an empty string. So this will be the default value. Now go ahead, and if you are going to have an int, then set the default value to 0 or whatever makes sense to you. Now, this is our profile. Pretty straightforward, right? Now it's time to talk about how we are going to authenticate. Now, currently, we're just having this content view right over here, and we are just configuring Firebase Auth. That's perfectly fine. But we need some sort of a central, let's just call it a service, an auth service, where we are going to do the authentication part. And just so you know, we are going to listen to the authentication state of our application. That could be, of course, authenticated, not authenticated. And while we are fetching this data of are we authenticated or not authenticated, we are going to have a state of undefined. So let's just start coding all of this out, and then I'm going to talk how we are going to connect this to our actual views. So maybe let's just go under the profile. Let's create a new file, and again, a Swift file, and let's name this auth state, service, because the auth state will be inside the auth service. So let's create this. Here we do need SwiftUI because this auth service will be actually an observable object, so we can use it throughout our SwiftUI application. And then let's import some more. So we are going to need Firebase Auth, of course. Firebase Auth, come on, Firebase Auth. I don't know why it's not adding it. Let me just see if we have Firebase service is part of Firebase Auth. Okay, that's interesting. Auth service that is part of module Firebase Auth. Ignoring. Okay, that's really interesting. We will see what we are going to get. This is the flavor of a live recording. Okay, let's import also Firebase Firestore. Firebase Firestore. There we go. And let's also import Firebase Firestore Swift. Let me just double check if Firebase Authentication, Firebase Auth is this is a little bit strange. Let me just double check if we have Firebase Auth added at all. Right over here, let's just go to General. Let's scroll down. We have Firebase Auth and we have Firebase Firestore. Okay, that's interesting. Let me just type away and we will see what's going to happen. So we are going to create a class right over here, and it will be named Auth Service. Okay, let's have Auth Service, and this will be an observable object. Okay, let's see if now that warning will go away. Let's hit Command B. Let's just see. It has succeeded. Okay, maybe this is just a small little warning kind of bug in Xcode. So we have our observable object. And if you remember, I told you there will be some authentication states, namely undefined, authenticated, and not authenticated. So let's create an enum right over here for auth state. There we go. There will be three cases, undefined first, case authenticated, authenticated, if I could just type that out really nicely, and not authenticated. Okay, so those are the three cases. Great. What we want to store inside our observable object is certain types of data that it's going to change over time, and the published variable is the perfect for that. So let's have at published var. First of all, we are going to store our profile, and that I'm going to initialize with the profile and, you know, the empty initializer, because the name will actually be nil in this case in the initializer. Therefore, the property will be set to empty string, which is the default value. That's perfectly fine. Okay, next up, I want to also store our auth state. So let's have another published variable right over here, auth state of type auth state and initial value undefined. Okay, and finally, you will see why we are going to need a UID, our user's UID. That's because if the UID it'll be populated right over here, I'm just going to use it to create a new profile. Otherwise, we're not going to create a profile. So at published var UID of type string equals an empty string. And yeah, maybe you also want to use your UID in some other places. Usually, it's a good thing to have that UID. So I'm going to set up an a state did change listener for our authentication. So basically, it's listening to authentication changes from Firebase. So I'm just going to do that on the initializer. So I'm going to create an init, and we don't need a profile, auth state, all of that. I'm just going to have this simple init, and let's just create a new function right over here, set up auth listener. There we go, setting up our auth listener, and I'm just going to call this when our auth service is going to be created. We are going to create that in just a second, but just so you know, when we are initializing it, we are going to launch our setup auth listener. And it couldn't be easier. Hopefully our our import here works as expected. So we just go auth dot auth. For some reason it's not recognizing it. Let's see, cannot find auth. Okay, so Firebase auth, let's see, maybe Firebase core. Let's see if auth is recognized over there. Auth, no. Auth, for some reason, it's not recognized. So what I would do is reinstall Firebase all over again. Hopefully that will fix our issue. So what we are going to do over here, well, did that go away? Auth service. Okay, well, I just said Firebase core. I do need Firebase auth, so I'm just going to remove it for now. Oh, Firebase auth. I just missed. You know, you should not set up Firebase auth as your project name, because, you know, that's our bundle name. That's our module. So let's change that. Yeah, it will be really fun to do that. So Firebase name, Firebase Authentication, maybe. And let's just hit return right over there. Everything should be changed. Let's rename that. And let's continue. Okay. and let's see, Firebase Authentication. There you go. Oh, and it crashed, but no worries. I'm just going to relaunch it again. There we go, Firebase Authentication. And we lost our file, but no worries. I'm going to import it. Let's just jump to our definition. Let's see, show in Finder. Do we have that available? Yes. So let's delete this. Let's delete that. And now let's drag and drop everything that we got over there. Live debugging. It's really, really nice. Okay, that's fine. Now let's see under Auth service. Let's hit Command B first. So let's make sure that everything works as expected. It's building successfully. And now you are just picking my brain. How are we going to fix this? We have one fail. Oh, developer assets. Yeah, the preview content. Authentication. Okay, let's hit Command B again. Hopefully now we have a build succeeded. Great. And finally, let's test this out. Let's import Firebase Auth. There it is. Wrong naming of our project. Okay, so now that we have Firebase Auth, we can continue after this bug fix. So let's see auth.add state ditch change listener. And it's going to come up with completion. It's going to give us our auth and the user, an optional user. We don't really care about the auth at this point. We care about the user, and it is an optional one. I repeat that. So we are going to have a user. We don't care about the auth, so I'm just going to use an underscore there. So this is an optional user. So according to the user being a nil, so if the user is nil, then we are not authenticated. If the user is not nil, we are indeed authenticated. So then let's change our auth state. So self, because we are inside the completion, auth state equals auth state equals. So we are going to do a ternary operator here. So if the user, if user, we are going to use user equals nil. So if it's nil, question mark, and we are going to have here two states and divided by this colon. So the first one, if it's nil, then we are going to set this to not authenticated. Otherwise, it will be authenticated. Great. So also, because we are going to sign up and also sign in at this point, when we do know that we have a user, we want to guard against that. So a guard let user equals user, else we want to simply return. So we are not moving forward with our code. If we do have a user, we just say self-UID equals our users.uid. So this is how we populate our UID. And also, this is how we set up our authentication state. And just so you know, this will actually be triggered automatically. We are listening to authentication changes. Okay, that's how we are listening. And in just a second, make sure you check out the whole video, by the way, or just check out the chapters down below. We are going to use this auth state to change between views. But before we do that, I just want to finish up this auth service. I want to add all of the functionality because we are inside the auth service. Let's add the functionality. First, we want to sign up. So let's create a sign up function. So sign up, and we are going to provide an email. So email, it will be of type string, of course, and also a password, and that will also be of type of string. And of course, we want to set up our name, because we want to also store our name inside our profile. So, and that can be set up not when we are logging in, only when we are signing up. Okay, so I do know that this will throw, so when we are going to use the Auth function, so, and also it's an asynchronous function, that one, so we are going to also set this as an async throwing function, so async throws. Great. First of all, we want to check if our name is not an empty string, because by default when we are going to fetch that from a text field, it's going to be an empty string. So we want to guard against that. So guard name not equals empty string, else we just simply want to return. We don't want to do anything else. Okay. Next, we want to create a user. So we are going to use try await. We are inside also already an asynchronous throwing function, so we can use try await auth.auth and then create user. Create user with email and password, not the one with the completion. This is not asynchronous, this one. So we're just going to pass along our email and password. Great. Now, after we have created the user, we actually want to see if this is, we got our UID. So basically, if this went through. So we guard against that again. So guard UID is not equals an empty string. Otherwise, we are just going to return again, return. And if that is not an empty string, we are going to create a profile. So let me just create a new function right over here. So func create profile with the name. So we are just passing along that name. It will be of type string. There we go. And basically we're going to try. Yes, so I do know that when we are saving, this will be a throwing function. So we are trying to create a profile and just passing along that name. Okay, so let's create our profile. Why not? Well, what we need to do, and let me just go back to our Firestore database right over here. So we are having collections right over here. We are going to create one collection for all of our profiles. Inside that collection, we are going to have the documents for each profile. And the documents key will be the UID that we got from authentication. Okay, so yeah, let's create a reference. So let reference, that will be, because we already have Firebase Firestore and Firebase Firestore Swift imported, we can just go Firestore Firestore, and we just go collection and profiles actually, because there will be a lot more documents in there. And then we are going to create a document with our UIDs. You see, we make sure that the UID is not an empty string, because then it will fail. This actual creation, setting the data, will fail. And at this point, we do have a UID, so we just go document at UID. Okay, so it will create the document with that key of UID. This is our reference. Now we want to create a profile. So let profile equals profile with a name. So let's hit option and return. We're just going to add the name that's provided in our property. Okay, we have our profile. Now it's time to actually save to Firestore, to actually to that reference. So that's really easy. So we just try reference dot set data, and let's choose the one with the from. You see, the from and encoder. So we just go from and profile, which is codable, encodable, because it is codable, and that's it. All the errors that might occur will be thrown all the way up to the sign up function, and that's it. This is how we sign up. Now, how do we actually log in? So let's create that too. So function log in, there we go, with an email and password, of course. So email, string, password, string, there we go. And this will also be an asynchronous throwing function. Okay, and it's just really simple. Try await auth dot and not create user but sign in with email and password. Is this one. There we go. With email and password, we just pass along the email and password. Now, and that's it. That's just one single line of code. Now you might be asking, okay, you just one, we're just doing this kind of extra functions right over here. Well, actually not, because we import Firebase functionality only to this file, so not all the other views. And it's not just one line. For the login it is, but for example, for the sign up, it's more than one line, as you can see. This is how we log in. Now, how do we log out? Again, that's pretty straightforward. Let's create a function for that. Log out, it will be a throwing function, so throws, and try auth, capital auth dot auth, and dot sign out. It's as simple as that. And we have this everything inside our service. Now, one final thing that we need to add to this service is to fetch our profile when we are logging in. And of course, also when we are signing up, but we already have that set up. So we are going to create a new function of fetch profile. There we go. It will be an asynchronous throwing function. Throws, async throws. And why asynchronous throwing? Because we are going to, again, access Firestore through an asynchronous and throwing environment. So let's create our reference first. Reference Firestore collection. Well, that's profiles, and I always copy it out. Even if I have a typo right over here, it will be basically the same. So document at the UID. Okay. What you could do is maybe just have a guard statement right over here. So guard, well, actually, I'm just going to copy this out. Guard UID right over here. Okay, so if you have that UID, that's perfectly fine. And after we have that, we are going to, well, we have our reference, we are going to pour that profile into our published variable so we can use it on our view. So let's just go profile equals try await, there we go. We grab our reference and then get document as, and again, this is from the Firebase Firestore Swift library. So get document as profile dot self, and this needs to be, of course, decodable. So we already set that up as codable, so it's just that single line of code. How cool is that? Okay, so that's it. For the authentication part, of course, if you wish to, you may add other functionality into your Auth service. Now, what do we want to do? Well, we have our content view right over here, but basically what we want is some sort of a logic for our Auth state. By default, it's undefined. So we want to basically present a progress view, maybe. And also, we want to access our Auth service. So first of all, we go into our app. And here we go. We have our app delegate right over there. And we want to create, the content view is basically the content of your application. So what we want is also an Auth view and also some sort of a main view that kind of collaborates, so manages our authentication state. So let's create a new file and let's create a SwiftUI view. I'll click on next there, and let's call this main view. I'm calling it main view because we are going to add it into our app right over here where it says main. Yeah, it depends, whatever works for you. So let's have main view instead of our content view right over here. Now also, this is a great time to initialize our Auth service. So at state object private var Auth service, there we go. equals auth service. And remember, when we are initializing this, we are automatically listening to the authentication state. One final thing, we want to set it up as an environment object, auth service, so it will be available throughout our application. Okay, so now we can go to the logic. I'm going to remove our canvas over here. Okay, so first of all, we want to grab our auth service. So that is at environment object private var auth service of type auth service. Okay, so now that we have our auth service, we want to present different views from the main view according to our auth state from the auth service. So let's create a group right over here, because we are going to have different views: progress view, auth view that we are going to create in just a second, and then the content view. So yeah, while we are at it, let me just remove this and let's create our auth view. Just a simple new SwiftUI view, sorry. Let's have auth view. There we go. Let's create that. This is where we are going to basically authenticate. And let's come back to our main view. And inside the group, we're just going to switch through our auth states. So switch auth service dot auth state, remember that published variable, and it will have three cases. Case dot undefined. For that, we are going to just have a progress view. We're just going to show a progress view. Something's going on. We're fetching our authentication state. Then we have our let's just go for not authenticated state, where we are going to present our auth view, and finally our authenticated, when we want to present our content view, the content of our application. Okay, so basically that's it. This is our logic for handling authentication changes. Now it's time to basically sign up. Basically we want to sign up. So what we do is create some views under the auth view. So let's have a VStack right over here. A VStack and a spacer that will just push everything down. I like to have all of my buttons, text fields all the way down. So we're going to have text fields for a name, email, and password. And also I'm going to set this up in the same view. So the auth view will do the logic for signing up and also logging in. So let's just create some state variables to handle all of these. First of all, name, email, and password. So at state private var name, and that's an empty string. Okay, let's duplicate this, Command D on the line. So we are on that line and hit Command D. Let's do this twice because I need email and also password. There we go. So now that we have these, I also want to create another state that will be, are we signing up or are we logging in? So at state private var is signing up. And usually you want to present the login screen, not the signing up screen, because that's kind of a one-time occasion. So is signing up set to false. And then we also need our auth service, which I'm just going to copy out from there and paste it in there. Okay, we have our properties set up. I do know these are just the only things that we need. Okay, so first up is our name. So this name should be presented only when we are signing up, not when we are logging in. So I'm just going to create if is signing up, then we are going to present this text field. So let's have a text field right over here, title and text, perfect. Our title, basically our placeholder, is a name, and we're just going to bind this to a name. And let's set the text field style to be a rounded border. I always like the rounded border text field style. Next up comes our email and password. So let's have another text field over here with email, and we're going to bind that to the email, and let's have also a text field style of rounded border. Okay, and finally we want to have a secure field, for passwords, and then the title will be password, and then we are going to bind that to our password. And again, the text field style, text field style, going to be rounded border. Okay, now that we have all of our inputs, it's time to have a button. So let's have our button right over here. I usually prefer with the action and label because on the label, I can set up any view. So on the action, I'm going to authenticate. That will be a function that I'm going to create right over here. So func authenticate. Okay. And for the label, well, I like these buttons that are really it's border prominent, but all the way to the sides of my screen. So to have that effect, I'm going to use a horizontal stack, 2 spacers. So this spacer over here and another one over here, and then a text of signing up or logging in. Now, it depends. It depends on the state of is signing up. So let's just check if is signing up. Again, a ternary operator here. We're going to say, and let me just add the other section too. So then we are going to sign up. Otherwise, we are going to log in. Okay. And also let's set the button style. So this horizontal stack may have effect. We're going to have a bordered prominent button style. Okay, so we have this button, but by default it's going to show login, and maybe I just want to sign up. So we want to have some sort of way of switching between signing up and logging. So switching between those screens, basically buttons, functionality, and showing the name if that is the case. So we are going to have another button right over here. So final button, and this time I'm just going to go with the title because it should be really, really small. It's not like the border prominent one. And again, I'm going to check if is signing up. Then I will say this, otherwise. So already have an account, and otherwise I don't have an account. Have an account. There we go. And the action will be toggling the is signing up. So yeah, basically that's it. Finally, I want to add on the vertical stack some sort of a padding because, the text field size, rounded borders will be all the way to the sides, which we don't really want. Now it's time to authenticate. Finally, we built out our view. We want to authenticate. This will be an asynchronous throwing function. We want to handle the errors right over here on the view. I'm not going to go and set up alerts over here. I'm just going to print it out, but make sure you handle these right over here. Because it's going to be an asynchronous function, we already know that, we have set it up. We are going to create a task under the authenticate. And because it's throwing, we are going to add this into a do catch statement. There we go, do catch. And we're just going to print out our errors, a localized description. Handle the errors appropriately in this case. So what do we want to do when we are authenticating? So when we tap on that button, well, first of all, we want to check are we just signing up or are we logging in? So if is signing up, then we're going to do one thing. Otherwise, we are going to do another thing. So if it's signing up, we're going to try await auth service dot sign up. There we go. We pass along the email, password, and name. How easy it is once you have that already set up. If we are not signing up, then we should be logging in. So we just go try await auth service dot login with email. Again, we're just simply passing it along, and password. Really, really nice. And that's it. That's our authentication view. Okay, so let's test this out. We code it quite a lot. Let's at least sign up, and then we're going to log out to log in again. Let's build and run right over here, and let's see what we are going to do. First of all, we should see on a blink of an eye that progress view, but most probably we are not going to see anything because it's super fast. We are going to be presented with our Auth view. So now it's attaching that to our iPhone 13 Pro simulator. Let's just wait for that. And yeah, that's how we, let me just move this out of the way so you can see it better. Let's just wait for this. There we go. We don't need this simulator. So we are trying to log in. Of course, this is usually what we are doing. But I don't have an account, so let's click on there. You see the name has been presented. So let's just go with Alex maybe. And for the email, dev@gmail.com. Let's type in a really strong password. And then let's click on sign up. Okay. And now Hello World has been presented, which is actually the content view. And yeah, let's just double check on our Safari. Let's go to authentication. We have dev@gmail.com, provider email, really nice. And here is our user UID, CSG and whatnot. Let's see if that has been saved to the Firestore database. Let's see, fingers crossed. There we go. We have our profiles collection, CSG and all of the others. And we have a name, Alex. Really great. That's nice. So now what we want to do is to log in, because if we added, if we wanted to sign up with the same email and password, basically, it will say that the email is already in use. So yeah, let's go ahead and go into the content view and add our button, because we do need to sign out before we can log in. So let's create, well, actually, let me just add a button real quickly right over here, log out, and the action, log out, okay. And let's have a function called log out. And then how do we log out? Well, first of all, before we go into logging out, why am I doing all of this logout functionality? Well, first of all, it's really easy to have the actions found right over here. If you don't do this, then you are going to be messing around inside the body, trying to find that button and then the functionality. Always move the action out into a function. Okay, that's what I do right over here. Okay, even if it's just a one-liner. So we need access to our Firebase, our Auth service, because here is our logout function right over here, the functionality actually. So let me just grab the environment again. I'm just going to copy that out inside the content view, paste it in there, and then this will be an asynchronous throwing, sorry, not asynchronous. This will be just simply a throwing function. So we just go put it into a do catch and print it out. Well, not privacy settings, print, and then the errors, localize description again, and right over here try auth service.logout. There we go, and that will just log out. Let's just see. Let's build and run again, and let's see if that is going to work. Let's just log out. There we go. We just logged out. Really, really nice. It's so super fun. So now let's log in. So dev@gmail.com, and let's add our password. And let's log in. And here we go. We have signed up, logged out, and now we can log in. Now this hello world is really, really boring. What we need is access to our profile. So let's set that up. First of all, we need some sort of text that will display, and I think this hello world will be just fine. So let's remove the globe, and instead of hello world, I just say, yeah, let's just go and say hello, our name basically. So right over here, let's use string interpolation. And if the name is not an empty string, because remember that name is an empty string by default, then we should present the name. Otherwise, we should say hello there. So let's just check if our, well, not that, but auth service dot profile dot name is not equals an empty string. Again, ternary operators. I really love ternary operators. We do something, otherwise the opposite. So if it's an empty string, then we just go hello there. That's fine. Otherwise, I'm going to actually use that auth service dot profile dot name. Simple as that. Now, this will not populate automatically. You will have access to it when you are signing up, but you need to fetch it. So when we have an actual valid UID, then we want to fetch our profile. So just a recap right over here. We are listening and we are setting our UID. When we set a UID, then we want to fetch our profile. And because we do know that we are going to fetch the profile when we do have a valid UID, I can just safely remove this part. Okay, so let's listen to the changes of this published variable, the UID. So under the content view, well, after the padding, that's fine. Let's just go for on receive. And what we want to listen to is our auth service $UID, that published variable. And we are going to get a UID back. And we want to make sure that this is not an empty string. So if UID is not equals an empty string, then we want to fetch our profile. Remember, this is an asynchronous throwing function, so we put it into a task and a do catch statement. There we go. Let's have our catch right over here, and let's just print out our errors localized description. And right over here, what do we want to do? Well, we try await our auth service dot fetch profile. And the cool part here is that after we fetch our profile, let me just go to that. We are going to store that profile in our published variable, which in turn is tied to our text right over here, which is really, really great. Isn't that awesome? So finally, let's build one more time and let's see that profile being fetched. There we go. It was hello there. Now it's going to fetch it. And we have hello Alex. Really, really great. Now, if you did enjoy this, go ahead and check out one of my favorite videos. That was my previous one. It's right over here.